It's almost summertime, and that only means one thing: sweat. Lots of sweat. And here's how we're gonna combat sweat: with a roll of paper, a marking device, and a roll of tape. I think you kind of see where this is going, right? I'm gonna tint my own windows. Might not be as pretty as the professional stuff, but it's gonna cost less than 50 bucks, and it's gonna make a huge difference when summertime rolls around. I've done this on the Arrow once before and it came out really great. It makes a huge difference when you're taxiing out and holding short here in Savannah, because we all know that we hold for 20, 30 minutes at a time sometimes if the fighters are recovering or if one of the runways here in Savannah is shut down. It's a busy airport. So let's take care of ourselves, and I'm gonna walk you through the process of doing exactly that. Now here is a disclaimer. I'm not an AMP, I'm not an IA, I'm not someone from the FAA. I just know that I'll be applying something into this airplane that's not gonna require tools to remove. The glass on this airplane is in really good shape. It's got a little crazing around the edges. It's older, but it's really not in bad shape at all. But they're huge, and they're a massive source of heat. I only started flying this airplane back in December, so I haven't really had it during a summertime yet. So we are going to tint it out. Dark in the back and a little bit lighter on the front, I believe. I tend not to fly at nighttime. I enjoy flying at night, don't get me wrong. It's beautiful, it's smooth, but when all things are considered, I prefer stacking the deck in my favor, and nighttime flying is just not one of those activities that I think is setting yourself up for success if something goes wrong. Let's take a pause, talk about safety. A safety stand down, if you will. Why am I talking about something going wrong? Well, flying an airplane is easy. You point it in the direction that you want to go. You pull back and the nose goes up. You push forward, the nose goes down, left and right, whatever. You can land an airplane, no problem. An instructor could probably get you to be safe enough to fly an airplane around on your own for hours, in a day or two. The stuff that really matters is the stuff that is going to cause injury, a world of hurt, whether it's physical or financial. It's the dangerous stuff that we have to encounter. What happens if your engine stops running or you run into IMC and you're only VFR rated? You think that we've got tools to avoid that kind of thing, and we do, but it still happens. So I think your private pilot training is setting you up for success, but you've got to go the extra mile. All right, let's tint these windows. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? We're gonna roll some paper out, tear off a piece of said paper, and we are going to apply paper to the side of the airplane. Stick that down. I want to pull this nice and tight so it has a great representation of the curvature of the airplane. I'll do the same thing on the bottom. If you're having to watch a video about putting paper onto the side of an airplane, then maybe you shouldn't be doing things with airplanes. But I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're learning something. Okay, we've stuck stuff. Now we've got to trace out the shape. And you really should use a marker with this, so be careful, but I didn't come prepared, so a pencil was all I could find. Now the issue with using a pencil is that that point end is going to poke a little bit into my paper, but for what we're doing, that's perfectly fine. Here we are, just making 2 sheets of paper, essentially one, because apparently the windows on the Bonanza are twice as large as the windows on my Arrow. It kind of feels that way. Now, if you want to do an award-winning job, you wouldn't be using this technique anyway. You'd be paying someone to do it. But in this instance, this will be just fine. I'll use some creative freedom to connect these dots later on. Are you really watching a 10-minute video on how to do? Well, actually keep watching because it's good for the YouTube algorithm. Being super careful with the paint, although I don't think that's going to be a problem. We are talking about masking tape here, not duct tape. Maybe that's a good point to make in the video. Don't use an aggressive tape. First of all, you don't need it. Second of all, it might actually take paint away when you go to remove this masking paper. This is looking pretty good. All right, we're gonna do the front window, and that one is probably the most difficult one to do because it's got that little pilot storm window. It's got a little pilot storm window. You can see it right there. So we're gonna have to trim around that and then do a separate patch for that little pilot storm window. And then the opposite side, I think, is just one solid window. So I'll have to do both sides instead of being able to just mirror that cut on the opposite side. Now that I'm looking at the window, I can see that there's no trim that's overlapping the glass area, the plexiglass area that I've just traced. So I don't need to step in too much when I trim out my patterns. I'm actually just going to trim it directly as I've drawn it out. So that'll make it nice and easy. I think I've got like 10 minutes before I need to make it back to work. So let's get to that. Now there's probably someone out there looking at this going, oh, you could have done a much better job, or you could have 3D scanned, I could have 3D scanned the window. But low budget, I'm gonna pretend as if I don't have access to all those tools. Again, this doesn't have to be precise. The closer it is, the better, of course, but I'm really not going for protection here. Or for perfection here, I'm going for protection from the sun. Oh yeah, you really can't do this project without knowing what kind of material I'm using. And this is the really important part of the entire project. The rest of the stuff is just paper and tape, right? So it's the Black Magic Instacling 20% VLT tinted window film. This stuff is from Amazon, and at time of recording, it was about 19 bucks. This is where we are. Self-explanatory, right? Just gonna lay it down, smooth it out, use a Sharpie to trace around the outside, and use some scissors, or even better, a razor. I'll see if I can find a razor, because then you can make a nice smooth, single motion instead of the choppy motion. But even if we do have a little choppy edges, it'll still look okay. So we'll clean this up, we'll trim it out, and we'll do it again because we'll need it on the opposite side. On the other side of the Bonanza, there's no storm window here, so I'll have to bring the line down and just be kind of creative when I bring the line down. And then we'll roll it out. I bought 2 rolls of this stuff, so let's see if we can make enough for the entire airplane. We're gonna keep at it. Right, we've made it back into the airplane, and we've got the pieces that we've just cut out at home of the tint, or the static cling film. So what I'm going to do now is use a window cleaner, something that doesn't have ammonia or any harsh chemicals. What you're going to want to do is test it in a really small corner to be sure that it's not going to cause any crazing or anything strange, any weird reactions. I'd spray a little corner one night, wipe it off, just a little bubble, and then come back the next day and see if anything has changed or reacted since you've been away. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to clean the glass first. I'm going to use a lint-free cloth. Usually a microfiber towel will do. You don't want any lint behind. It won't show up too much, but I mean, why not do a nice job if you can? Clean it up, and then we're going to spray the surface of the window to act as a lubricant so we can position the film where we want it to be. After that, we'll squeegee out the Windex and try to capture as much of it as we can, and we'll be done. So get your credit card as a squeegee, because this is a really cheap project, and let's see how this thing turns out. I'm going to start on the passenger window of the Bonanza first. All right, there we go. See the bubbles there? It's allowing me to shift the tint around just a little bit, and I'm really trying to get the top nice so it doesn't peel down. So like a massive window, huge, major source of heat. So that looks good to me. And now I'm gonna start squeegeeing. old MasterCard connected to my aviation accounts. There's no money in the bank accounts, so I guess I could use the card for something else. Now, if I were thinking, I would have sprayed the screen right here, or the tint, to get it a little damp to make the card swipe just a little bit easier, or slide just a little bit easier, but it's sliding pretty well on its own. And we're just pushing the bubbles out with medium, or actually pretty light force for now. I want to get it set in place, get the majority of the water out. So those two sides are done. You can see the outer edge of the tint from the inside. It's not perfect, so I may end up redoing that at some point, but it's going to provide pretty decent shade or coverage for the summertime. This backside is looking really nice. The edges have tucked really nicely, and I've squeegeed out most of the water. It's decently clear. It's not, as clear as the glass was before. So for those taking pictures out the window, it might not be as clear, but it will certainly be a lot more comfortable in here, and the airplane's going to look a lot cooler from the outside too. So yeah, this is pretty nice. I did not use any lubricant to position this one. It's just clung on there. You can see a little bit of these ripples. I could probably pull it a little bit tighter and just put it there, but it's just clung there just by static electricity. And if I wanted to remove it, I could just grab the corner and peel it down. Same thing on the front. So there's no tools really involved with putting these things on or taking them off. And I'd say it's looking pretty good so far. I was a little rough on the inside because I needed to trim a little bit tighter, but I think we're looking quite nice. All right, I'll get back to work. I would highly recommend ventilation inside the airplane. It's getting warm in here, but we must truck on. 2 more windows to be done in the back here, and then we got to figure out something on the entry door window. I think my piece is a little bit too big for the door. I did not account for the door frame when I estimated that both sides, left and right, were going to be the same. So I'll have to trim it down just a little bit. I should have scissors somewhere in here. That's the name of the game. Try and try again. Let's keep moving. Let's ignore the fact that there's a fire somewhere nearby. I can smell and see smoke. We've got other things to worry about. And that is how good this thing looks with the tint. Look at that. I mean, just look at that. I used a little glass cleaner to clean it up from the pollen and dirt that's been on it, but for about 40 bucks, let's say 50 bucks, we've got tinted windows, and as the spray that we used to help position it, as it dries, it's going to clear up even more, although it's not that bad right now. This is going to be a huge help during the summertime. And again, it just looks fantastic. The inside's not perfect. Around the edge of the windows, where the scissors were just drifting around, it's not perfectly straight. I've got a little bit of a lift happening right here. You probably can't see it, but right there. So I have to go and maybe press that down a little bit, but this looks nice. And the entire project, realistically, if I wasn't filming, the entire project probably took me 2 hours. Tracing all that out, taking it home, cutting out the tint or the static cling, and then putting it all on. The passenger door is probably the worst one, simply because I oversized it by accident. I made it the same size as the opposite window, not accounting for the thickness between the door frame and the window. So I had maybe a 2-inch overlap all around the window. And trimming this thing's really hard once you put it in place because it wants to curl under itself or just ripple under itself. But from out here, it's nice. You see I kind of missed the curve there a little bit. 40 bucks, 2 hours, spread across 3 days. We've made a huge improvement here, folks. Okay, let's bring this all home. Is it legal? I can't answer that question for you. Only you and your maintenance professional can answer that question, but mine thinks it's perfectly legal, and we'll just do a little logbook entry to say that that's what we've done. If you hit a bind with this thing and you're in nighttime IMC and it's just, you know, it's too dark to see outside for that little tiny runway that you're aiming for, you grab the corner, you peel it off, you continue your flight, you stay safe. The other thing, how much did this all cost? I show you the cost of the tint, right? And if you've got some scissors and a marker and some painter's protecting paper, that roll, you can get this all done for under 50 bucks. Now, prices of certain things are going up. This is not a political channel. We're not going to talk about that. But yeah, about 50 bucks, less than 60 bucks. Are there commercial alternatives to this? Yeah, you can pay someone to do this job and they'd probably do it really well. They could use a slightly different color. I've seen people using reflective colors on their tints. You know, they're just like a reflective silverish type tone that looks like a mirror from the outside. Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. There are a couple other companies like I think Plain Tint or Jet Shades or something like that. They sell shades that you can put into the window, but I've seen people complain about fitment. These airplanes were all hand built back in the day, so one application might not work for another one. Just remember those types of details and you're going to be okay. And then at the end of the day, you won't see me putting tint on the front window because that's where visibility matters the most. And I'm pretty sure the FAA has guidance or regulations about putting things that obstruct your view out that front window. I don't know exactly where to find that. I'll look it up, maybe put it in the description. But I seem to remember seeing something under Part 23 about exactly that. If I find it, I'll list it, but if not, someone might be able to correct me in the comments. Thanks for watching. Go outside. I mean, it's not going to be this nice forever. It's like, you know, maybe 68, 70 degrees in Savannah right now. I'll take it while I can get it. My neighbor is emptying their pool so that they can refill it for summertime. It's an above ground pool, which is good by me. I really like it. They invite me to come over and hang out in their pool. Say hello to your neighbors. That's what we've been talking about. All right, we'll catch you later.